this is Jeff. This video is the first of a series of videos that I'm going to call lines. But this particular video is about how to create lines in After Effects. After Effects does have a vector-based interface. You can go up and create vector lines, so going to the top and selecting G for the pen tool. And then the pen tool, which is very similar to how it's used in Illustrator, essentially is the main interface in which you would create these graphics. So I'm going to start by just go ahead and clicking once. And that's going to lay down a vertex or a singular point. And that point, you can see, once I do that, has created a shape layer. So on here you have shape 1, it's a path, there's a stroke and a fill. We haven't drawn enough to see those, but I just want you to know that this is all what appears as soon as you start using the pen tool. So I've already laid the first vertex. I'm going to go ahead and do the second, and just by singular clicking, it's going to basically draw the vertex and apply a stroke and a fill to it. And if I just do singular clicks, it's going to just draw a straight line. But if I click and drag, it's going to create these Bezier handles, or these handles that control curves. You can kind of control these curves a little bit if you go back to the selection tool, and then you can pull them around and shrink them and grow them a bit. This should be very familiar to anyone who is familiar with the Illustrator pen tool. It works very much the same. So where it is different is how you kind of control these elements. Now, the obvious part is if you want to change the fill, you just make sure this object is selected, and you can go up to the top. And let's say you want it to be more of an orange. I'm going to say OK. You can also change that with the stroke and the stroke thickness, so it's bigger or smaller. So those are some quick things that you can do. Now, I know that I don't want this fill. So there's a couple ways that I can get rid of it. If I go down here into the shape layer, you can see there's the contents, there's the shape 1, which is the first line. The path is the actual blue line here. That's the mathematical equation. It technically has no appearance. If there's no stroke and fill applied to it, it's invisible. The stroke here is got the settings that I want, but it's the fill that I want to hide. So I'm going to go to the fill, and I can either get rid of it by either taking this opacity all the way down to 0, or what I can do is I can just select the fill entirely and get rid of it. Now, if you feel like you've made the worst mistake in your life, don't cry. It's totally fine. Up here in Contents, you can go to Add, and there'll be lots of things that you can add to a shape layer, including a fill. We'll look at some of these other functions later. So I can add that fill. There it's back, it's in red, but I still don't want it, so I'm going to select it and get rid of it. Now, just because you have created this here, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with it. That you have other options. So what you can do is, for example, if you have these points, or you have these vertexes that have hard angles and you want to kind of adjust them, I'm going to go ahead and select not the shape layer, but the actual shape here down in the timeline. And I'm going to go up, and underneath the pen tool there is the Convert Vertex tool. And what that is going to do is if I click and drag on an existing vertex, it will turn it into a curve. So I can actually turn those into a curve. Now, if you have an existing curves and you don't want them, you can simply click on the vertex and get rid of them again. So the Convert Vertex tool allows you to draw curves where they weren't before and remove them where they are. There. So that's all the basic functions that I was going to show, but what I really wanted to do is visually I have an idea for a bunch of simple curving lines. So let me just get rid of this entirely, because I was just using that to instruct the basics. And I'm going to use the pen tool, this time to start with a curve down, some kind of undulating curves here. I'm going to zoom out, and I think I can even make those even a little bigger. I'm going to select this and just kind of stretch out some of these curves. I want a nice, like, undulating, consistent curve. I think that's going to do a pretty good job. Maybe I'll even make them a little more pronounced. Okay, so maybe you're following along with this in a exact way, or maybe you're just watching, but I'm going to keep it there, get rid of the fill, and I think I am ready for the next step.